Learn how to build a full-stack Google Calendar clone entirely from scratch using PHP, MySQL, JavaScript, HTML, and CSS. No frameworks, no external libraries. Just clean, understandable code. Mohammed Al Abrah developed this course.
Hey everyone, in this tutorial we're diving into an exciting new challenge in web development, building a Google Calendar app clone from scratch. We'll be using HTML5, CSS3, JavaScript, PHP and SQL to bring this powerful interactive scheduling app to life. Get ready to master dynamic event handling, responsive layouts, and database integration all in one hands-on project. So let's get started and see you in Visual Studio Code. Welcome to the course Calendar App, a dynamic web-based scheduling application built using PHP, MySQL, JavaScript, HTML, and CSS. It allows users to add, edit, and delete multi-day events with an intuitive interface, all in a clean, mobile-friendly layout. Whether you are building a learning management system, managing training sessions, or organizing team events, this project provides a lightweight but a powerful solution. Technologies used: PHP for backend scripting, form handling, database communication. So we will learn how PHP interact as a backend scripting language and how it performs form handling, how to handle data coming from the forms, and also how to communicate and interact with the database using PHP. MySQL or as a persistent data storage for appointments to store the events and tasks inside an SQL table or database. JavaScript as a client-side calendar logic, event rendering, and also modal controls. So the JavaScript will allow us to show pop-ups, and also to make the page interactive and live. And HTML5, we will use HTML5 to design and build the structure of the user interface. And also, of course, we will use CSS3 for styling and responsiveness to make the app responsive. And also we will use Google font, which is my favorite Google font, which is Inter, a clean modern typography, which is Inter font. So if you notice here in the app, we have a nice header, and also we have a clock running, and also we have this calendar box, which is amazing. If you try to go back, you can go back May, April, and so on. And if you want to go forth, you can go forth, okay, until you can see that the year will become 2026. If you reload the page again, it will redirect you to the current month, current year, and also the current day. You can see that the current day is highlighted with the background as blue. Now if you want to add new task, you can do that, of course, by typing in the course title. For example, the course title as Data Engineering Bootcamp, and then you can define the instructor name, for example, as me, Mohammed, and then start date, you can specify it if you want. End date, the start date will be by default the chosen day. If you click on the 6th of this month, it will be here the 6th of this month, which is in this time the June month, which is 6. Then you can update the end date by going, for example, to the 10th of this month. So you can choose any date you want. I chosen in this 10. Then start time, for example, let's start from the 8 o'clock a.m. to 12 o'clock a.m. Now we can save that, and as you see, we have here Data Engineering Bootcamp. The instructor is Mohammed, and it starts from 8 o'clock to 12 o'clock, which is 000000, and then it spans over to the 10th of this month. Okay, then we can edit. So if you hover over this, you can see that we have an edit button now. If you click on edit, you can edit the course title, you can edit the instructor name, and also you can edit the range of the date, the start date and end date, and also you can edit the starting time and ending time. Let's in this case edit the instructor name to be, in this case, for example, Smith, and now save that. You can see that appointment updated successfully, which is nice. Now the instructor is Smith. Okay. Also, we can edit it and edit the start date to start, for example, from the 15th of this month till the 20th of this month. So you can go from 15 of this month till the 20 of this month by choosing 20. Then we can save that. It spans now from 15 to 20. Okay, so we can update the range of the date. We can also update the instructor name, and also we can update the name of the course by going edit and update it to, for example, data visualization, and then save that. We have a nice data visualization bootcamp ready to go. Okay, also we can add multiple events on the same day by going edit, by going add. We can add a new event and then name that event. So course title, for example, I'm going to name it as, for example, PHP course. Then the instructor name is John. Start date, let's start it from the 15 till the 25 of this month. Then we can update the start time or keep it the same. Let's update the start time to be, for example, from 11 a.m. to 12 a.m. Or we can update that to p.m., 11 p.m. to 12 a.m. Okay, then save that. Then you can notice that we have now an overlapping that starts from 15 and spans all the way up to the 25 of this month. So you can notice that we have here some overlappings. We have two events, but here we have this event alone. PHP course, the instructor is John, and the starting time is 23 and the ending time is 12 a.m. Okay, so in this video we will try to build this app, and also we will learn some techniques in JavaScript and PHP to fetch the data. If you go to this PHP My Admin interface and then go to appointments, browse this, it will show that we have now created two courses. The first is Data Visualization Bootcamp, and the second is PHP course. The instructor name, the name of the instructor for the Data Visualization Bootcamp is Smith, and the start date, it starts 15 of this month. Okay, and the end date, it ends on the 20 of this month. And for the PHP course, it starts from the 15 of this month, but it lasts or it continues till the 25 of this month. And also we have the starting time and ending time, as you can see. So in this video we will try to build this app using full stack languages or full stack web development languages: HTML, CSS, JavaScript, PHP, and SQL. So, and also we can delete an event by going delete, and then it will show a pop-up for confirming that as a confirmation pop-up. Are you sure you want to delete this appointment? Okay, and then this appointment now is deleted. And notice that when we hover on a day that doesn't have events, it just shows one button as add. But when we hover over a day that has an existing or has a pre-existing event, it has two buttons, add and edit. We can add new appointment or we can edit the existing appointment. Okay, and when we have multiple events, let's try to add multiple events by going, for example, AI Bootcamp, instructor name Smith, and then, or for example, instructor name as Alex. Then the start date, keep it the same. Let's keep it end date as, for example, the 30th of this month. Now we can save. Now we have another course as AI Bootcamp, and when we try to edit this day, it will show a select that you can choose which event do you want to edit. So which event you want to update, we can update the data visualization bootcamp, and also we can update the AI bootcamp. Let's try to update the AI bootcamp, and then update its, for example, end date to be 28. And also we can update the instructor name as, or for example, the course title from AI bootcamp to artificial intelligence bootcamp, and then update the start time to start, for example, from 7th o'clock till the 12th, or for example 10 o'clock. Now let's save that, and it's now updated. Now we have an artificial intelligence bootcamp that starts from the 21 of this, or starts from the 19 of this month, and then spans all the way to 28, because we have excluded these 2 days. Okay, so when we do edit on a day that has multiple events, it will show us a select menu, a drop down menu that you can choose which appointment, which task, which event you want to update. Okay, so let's dive in together and let's build this project together. See you in Visual Studio Code, and let's dive in. In this section, we will build the HTML structure for the calendar project. So first of all, we need to run exam server. So we can search exam. So as you notice here, I have started the Apache server and the MySQL server. So if you don't have these two started, you can click start and it will start. If you don't have exam server installed on your computer, you can go install exam. The first website will be download exam. Go into it, and then you will notice this website, which is apachefriends.org. This website will help you download the exam server on your computer locally. So you can choose your appropriate OS system and then choose whatever bits you have, 64-bit or whatever you have, and then you can download it locally, whether you have Linux, whether you have Mac OS, and so on. So you have to download exam on your local machine. Once you have exam on your local machine, as I told you, you search here exam, and you have to start the Apache server and SQL server to be able to run this project locally. With that being said, now we need to create a folder inside the C. So we have to go into folders and then choose this PC, and then go into the C, and then we have to go into exam folder. Then you have to choose this folder, hypertext documents, which is htdocs. Inside this folder, we have to create a new folder. For example, I'm going to call it calendar underscore project or dash project. So now this is my folder. It's empty. Now I will open this folder using Visual Studio Code. So let's open Visual Studio Code, which is opened already, and then go to File, Open Folder. Then we have to go down this PC, C, choose exam folder, hypertext documents, and then choose our calendar project folder. Select folder, and there we go. So now we have this folder opened. We can create files. Let's create our very first file in this project, which is called index.php. So you will notice that there is an elephant icon here, which is really nice. Now we can go ahead and start coding this project. So the first thing I will use is doctype HTML. So the document type, the type of this document is HTML. This code is really important to denote that this document is of HTML type. And then the first element we have to use is HTML, and we have to close this HTML element or tag. we have to specify that the lang is English, so language, the language of this page is in English language, and we have to specify that the direction is left to right. Next, we have to start a head element or head tag, and then inside head we will specify meta, the meta element, and then character set, we will set it to the best character set, which is UTF-8, which supports a lot of characters and a lot of different letters in many different languages. And meta name viewport, so if you want your page to be responsive, and if you want your page to scale across many different devices or across many different screen sizes, you have to set this meta tag, meta name viewport, so the viewport, and then specify the content attribute as width equals device dash width, and then put a comma, initial dash scale equals 1.0. So we have to specify width equals device dash width, and then put a comma, initial dash scale, so the initial scale equals 1. And then you might want to put a title for this project. I will use this title, calendar project, so you can specify it as whatever you want. And then after title, you might put whatever meta tags here. For example, meta name description, specify some description for it. For example, I will write in here my own calendar project. For example, you want to specify it as you want. Whatever you want, you can specify it as you want. So that's enough for the meta tags and titles. There are a lot of other types of meta tags. You can search for it and use whatever you want to make it SEO friendly. SEO is short for search engine optimization. But the most important thing in here is we have to create a link tag that will link to a CSS file. So I have to specify the relationship as style sheet, and then href. So here we have to put the path to the CSS file. So let's create a CSS file which is called style.css. We will put all of our styling content in this file, style.css, and we will link or we will refer to this file in here, in this attribute href. So let's write in here style.css. Now we have created our head section successfully. We can move on to the body section. Body will contain the following contents. So all of our page content will be inside the body tag. The first thing we will create is the header tag. So we have to go header. So header and then slash header. So the header tag will contain an h1 tag, which is the main title for this page. Let's set it as, for example, let's put an icon of calendar. And then course calendar. Let's write in here course calendar, and then put some break element, and then let's write in here my calendar project. You can write whatever you want in here. After the header tag, let's go ahead and create a div element for the clock. So we want a clock. So let's write a comment in here, clock. Let's create a div element. So div is short for division. Div class equals clock container, clock dash container. And then inside this div element, let's create another div element which has the ID attribute. So the ID is a unique identifier for this div, ID as clock, and then let's put /div. So now this div element will show us a live clock that will start from the current time and then counts every second. It will increase the time by 1 second, and then it will count the clock for us. So this is a box for the clock item. And then after this div, after this clock div, we will add the calendar section. So we will create calendar section by going div and then class. Let's specify a class for this div as calendar, and then /div. Inside the calendar section div, we will create another div with the class nav_btn container. So this container will contain the navigation arrows that will help us or allows us to navigate between months. So we can go 1 month, we can go to the next month, or we can go back to the last last month. So we can navigate between months. So let's create a div class and then specify it as nav-btn. So the button of the navigation item, and then on click, when we click on this button, we will invoke a function. Later in JavaScript section, we will create a function called change month, and then we will invoke this function in here, and we will we will pass in here -1. So, but we will keep this for later when we use JavaScript, okay? But this button will be used to navigate between months. So div, and then let's specify it as nav-btn, and then we have to put in here /div, and we may use an icon of previous button like this. After it, we will add an h2 tag, h2 element, and specify id equals month year, style equals margin, month year, and then we might give it style as margin 0 to make the margin of this h2 as 0, to 0 the margin of the heading 2, and then we will not write anything here, just it will be like a separator, and then we will add another button slash and then slash button, and then specify the on click later. As we said, we will specify the on click later. Now we will set the class attribute as nav-btn, and in here we will put next icon. Actually, we need to set this as button, so we need to set this element as button and then slash button, okay? So I have a button for going to the previous month, and we have a button for going to the next month. Now that we have finished this section, we can create another div. Notice this div will be inside, will be still inside this class calendar, but outside of the div class nav-btn container. So outside of this div, we will go outside it, and then add a new div as class equals calendar. We will name the class as calendar-grid, and then specify id equals calendar, and then we will close this div by going /div. So this div will be used to display the calendar, to display the calendar grid, okay? So the class is calendar-grid, and the id we have set it as calendar. After this calendar section, we need to create another section, which is modal for add /edit /delete appointment. So we need to add a modal that will help us add, edit, delete appointments to affect the calendar. So let's go div and then give it an ID equals event selector wrapper. So we will specify this ID for this div, which is event selector wrapper, and then inside this div we will create a label and then put slash label element, and then we will specify a for attribute for this label tag as event selector, and then inside this label element we will use the strong element, strong, to make the text strong and bold, and let's write in here select event. So this select event will help us to select which event do you want to edit or delete. So when you have multiple events in the same day, you want to edit an event, which event do you want to edit? So you can choose from this select element. So we can go select. This is select element in HTML. It's a nice element that helps you to select one element from multiple elements. And then we have to specify the ID as event selector, event and then selector. Notice capital S. And then when we reach the JavaScript section, we will create a function that we can invoke in here. On the change event, we can invoke a function which is called handle event selection. But this will be later on when we reach the JavaScript section, when we create that function. Currently, inside this select element we will create an option element, option and then slash option. This option element will be disabled. We'll give it the attribute or the property disabled to be disabled, and then we will give it the property selected. We want it to be selected by default, and then let's write in here choose event, and then dot. Now we have finished this section of the select element. We can move on to the next section. Notice after this div we will create another section as main form. This is the main form section, and this form will contain the inputs that we can insert new appointment or edit an existing appointment. Okay, so now let's go form, and this form element will have the attribute method as post. We need to set the method attribute or property as post to send the data in the post mode or in the post action, and then ID equals event form. This form element, inside it I will create an input element of type text, or actually I will make the type as hidden. So we need this input to be hidden. Okay, this input should be hidden, will not be visible to the user, but this input will contain a name property of action. So what is the type of action that I want to perform on the calendar? This input will inform me later on when we reach the PHP section, which action should we perform on the calendar. By default it will be add action, so it will be insert action. So we will set the value as add, and then we have to specify an ID attribute as form action. After this input element I will create another input element of type hidden. So let's make the type as hidden. So input element of type hidden, and then the name of it will be event dash underscore ID, and then let's create an ID attribute of event underscore or event capital I event ID. So the ID attribute here is event ID, name event underscore ID. And now let's create a label. Let's create a label element which will have the for attribute as course name, so course name, and then let's write in here course title, so course title, the title of the course, and then type of input of type text. We will create an input of type text as a text input, and then the name of it will be course name, course underscore name, ID as course name. And this input will have to be required. We need to make this input required in order to be provided to us to store it in the database. The next step is we have to create another label element which have the for as instructor name. So the instructor name, what is the name of the instructor that will explain this course or this session, and then let's have it as instructor name. Let's add an input element here of type text, and then set the name attribute as instructor underscore name. ID equals instructor name, and then let's make this input required. Let's give it the property required to be required. The same thing goes for the start date. So you have to create the label element and that has the for attribute as start date. So this, what is the start date of this event, of this task, or of this course? And then we have to create an input of type date. So this input has to be of type date. Why? Because this input will be as a date input that you can choose the date, the month, and the year that this session or this course will be on. And then we have to give it the name as start underscore date, and the ID should be as start date. And this input also has to be required from the user. We have to get some start date in order to be able to specify when this event starts. The same thing goes for the end date. So you have to give it the for attribute as end date, and then write in here end date. So you will notice a pattern in here that always the value of the for attribute matches the value of the ID. The value for the for attribute must match the value of the ID. Why? Because when we click on this label, we want the browser to automatically select or focus on the input. Later, when we browse the page, I will show you that when we click on this label, it will focus on the input by default. Why? Because we are matching up the value of the for attribute with the value of the ID attribute. This has to be matched. The name doesn't have to match them, but it's good to have explainable, and it's best practice to name the name attribute as really good names for you in future to understand what this input gets from the user. So let's do an input element here of type date, and then give it name as end underscore date. As you'll notice, this type of naming is really good for us, for future us. When we return back to this code, maybe after 6 months, you will understand immediately what this input receives from the user, and the ID attribute has to match up with this value. So you have to copy and paste this value in here, otherwise it will not focus on the input. And then we have to make this input required to be required in order the user has to provide us with end date for us to be able to specify when this session starts and when this session ends, or when this task starts and when this task ends. The last thing here we need to do is a button. We have to create a button that will be of type and equals submit. So this button of type submit to submit this form, and then let's add an icon here for save or preserve. Let's go save, or it doesn't matter, not important. Let's write in here save and then slash button. So now we have a button that will allow us to save and submit this form, and then we will receive the data that's being sent from this form by a PHP script. Later I will create it, and then we will send this data and store it in the database in MySQL database, and then we will be able to fetch this data and display it on the calendar grid. So I think we have finished now the HTML section correctly. We can now the last thing, we can create a delete form. So let's create a section for the delete form before we finish this section. So we have to create a form to delete this session, or delete this task, or delete the task or event. So form of method that has a method attribute, method equals post, notice capital letters, post, and then the on submit. When we submit this form, I want to return the function confirm. So the function confirm in JavaScript, specifically in the BOM object, which is browser object model, this BOM JavaScript has a function called confirm. Confirm will show us in the browser a confirmation message that will confirm. Are you sure you want to delete this? So are you sure you want to delete this task or this event? So we are asking the user, are you sure you want to delete this event? If yes, or to delete this appointment, let's name it appointment. If yes, he wants to delete it, and he is sure he wants to delete it, we can go ahead and delete this task or event. So inside this form, we will create an input of type equals hidden. So this input must be hidden. This input will contain this information, which is name equals action. So the type of action, and then value equals delete. So the action we are trying to do in here is deleting action. We want to delete a task or event from the calendar. So we have to specify the value of this input element as delete. Then we have to create another input element of type hidden, and this input will also be event underscore ID. So what is the ID of the event that we want to delete? We have to specify ID as delete event ID. And then lastly, we will have a button of type equals submit, and then let's specify class as submit-btn, and let's put here an icon of, for example, bin. Yes, this is the icon, so bin icon, and then write in here delete this event. The last thing here I want to add is, let's write a comment in here. Let's put an X icon, and then cancel. So what if we wanted to cancel the procedures that we have clicked on? So when we click on this modal for edit, add, and delete, it will show up a modal. It will pop up a modal, and if we don't want to add or edit or delete, we may want to cancel the procedures. So we can go ahead and put a button specified or dedicated to this action, which is canceling action. Specify type equals button. So the type of this button will be a normal button, and then on click, when we click on this button, later on, as I said in the JavaScript section, we will create a function that will close modal. So let's keep that for the JavaScript section. When we reach the JS section, we will create these functions, and we will come back in this HTML and inject the on-click attributes for each element that needs to be called. Okay, and then because otherwise it will error out because we don't have these functions now in this time. And then let's specify a class attribute as submit-btn, and also we have also to write something in here, as for example, let's put a comment of X, and let's write in here cancel. So with that being said, I believe now we have finished all the sections for this HTML section, all the codes. Now we can move on to the next section, which is CSS. But if you wanted to just lastly link to a script, link to a JavaScript file, you can go script and then /script, and let's specify src as calendar.js, and let's create this file now as we have done with the CSS. Let's create a file called calendar.js, and this file will contain some JS. So now let's make sure that we have these. I think we have to rise the button inside the div elements of this section. So I think this button and this form, we have closed the modal area. So let's take the /div from here. We have a calendar section, calendar, and then /div, div id, event, select a wrapper, and then we have div class modal. Yeah, we have forgotten to create this. We have to create a div in here, div class equals modal, and then id equals event modal, and then inside this div we have to create another div which has the class modal-content, and then inside these two divs we can put our code like that. Yeah, and now we can close these two divs right here after the button. We must close these two divs. Okay, so this is a really important step that I have missed. We have to create two divs before the event selector wrapper. One div has the class modal and also the ID event modal, notice capital M, and inside it there's another div which has the class modal-content. These two divs will be closed right below this cancel button. Why? Because all of this content will be contained, all of this content, the button, the cancel button, the delete form, and also the edit form, and also the add form, will all be contained or will all be within this modal that will pop up. So we have to create these two divs. Really important, okay? Really important tip. And then we have to close them right before the script and also right below the button. So once we close this button, we have to close these two divs. So now we have finished all the HTML section. Meet you in the next section where we will be coding CSS. Welcome back. In this section, we will continue writing our CSS code. So the first element is root. We will set some colors to use later when we want to color our elements. So the first color is -- primary. So the primary color will be as 6b8 2f6, and then primary -light, and then as dbeafe. I think this has to be 3. And then we will set primary dark, primary -dark as 1e3a8a -- background. So the color of the background will be f9fafb. I think this has to be a 1d 1e and then 3a 8a. Yeah, and then we have to set the color of the success message to be as D1FAE5. So when we do some operations like adding a new appointment or editing an existing appointment or deleting an appointment, and that operation happened successfully, we want to show a message, a success message, and we want to color that message as a success message. So the color of the success operation will be as D1FAE5, and then dash success dash text will be as 065F46. So this is the color of the text of the message, of the success message, and then the color of the error message will be as FEE2E2, and then also the color of the error text. So the color of the text of the error message will be as B#B91C1C. So now we have finished all of the colors that we will use across our CSS style sheet. We will set the margin of all elements as 0, as well as the padding as 0, and also we will set the box sizing as border box. And these are best practices you will notice across many different style sheets in the internet or in GitHub. All of them use this kind of elements: margin 0, padding 0, and box sizing border box, because we want to set these elements to the default so that HTML elements go in the default behavior. For example, the headings and the inputs don't have a margin, don't have padding. We will set the margin and padding ourselves. The next step is the body. We will style the body section. Font dash family, I will use the font family Inter, and as a backup font we will use sans serif. Right now I have this font. Okay, so I have this font in my clipboard. I will paste it in the head section. So now I am in the PHP or HTML file. I will paste this CDN link for the font family Inter in here. You can notice that the weight is 400, 600, 700, and display equals swap. So if you want this font, you can get it from the Google Fonts. You can go Google Fonts, and then you can search in here for the Inter font. So you can notice that we have this font, and you can choose whatever font you have, whatever font you want. For example, if you want this font, you can go to here and then get font, and you can get this font using which way you want, whether it was link or import, whether you want it the import version or link version. Okay, right now I have pasted my CDN link in here. Why? Because I want to use the font as Inter, so font family as the font Inter. And then the background color, I will set a background color for the body as variable, and I will set it as dash background, and then the color of the body will be #333, and also I will set the line height as 1.6. So these are the styling elements for the body. Font family Inter, background color, we have used this variable background, which is this color. So we will set the background color for the body as this color, and also the text color will be as 333, and then the line height 1.6. Now let's move on to the header section. The header section will have the background as a variable, which is as primary, the color primary, and then the color will be white. I will set the color of the header to be white, padding 2 rem and then 1 rem. I will add padding from the top side and bottom side as 2 rems, and from the left and right sides as 1 rem. and then I will set the text align as center. Now if you save these changes and go into our HTML page, you will notice that we have styled our header section correctly in this way. After we have finished our header section, we can move on to the clock section. So let's write in here clock. So the clock section will have these elements: clock container, the background as variable of primary light, so I will use primary light variable, and then color, I will use the variable primary dark dash dark. So this is the purpose of setting some variables. You don't have to memorize these colors over and over. You set them at the start of the file, and then you refer back to the variable names. And then I will set the font size to be as 2 rem to make the font bigger, and then the font weight to be bold to make the font bolder, and then padding 1 rem. And then also I will set the text align as center, and then font dash family, I will set it as inter, the font inter, and then comma sans dash serif, and then the letter spacing, I will add some letter spacing to the clock container as 2 pixel, and then border dash bottom, I will add a border bottom 2 pixel solid, and then I will use the color of primary. So now if you notice this clock container, it will be like this. So this is the clock container, and now we will add some media query for it to make the clock container responsive. So media, and then max dash width, I will set the max width as 768 pixels. So the maximum width of the device screen of the screen size will be 768. So every single device screen equal to this or less, we will set the clock container to be as the font size, I will make it smaller. So rather than being the font size as 2 rem, I will make it 1.4 rem to make the font smaller. And then the padding, I will set it as 0.75 from all directions, from the top, left, bottom, right. Okay, so these are important for responsiveness purposes. Now we have finished our clock. You may have the question, why don't we have a clock running into here? Because we haven't reached the JavaScript section. When we reach JavaScript, we will create a function that will make this clock work and make this clock counts further. Now we can go to the calendar section, calendar container. In the calendar container, I will set dot calendar, the class calendar, to have a max width of 1000 pixel, and also margin from the top and bottom as 2 rem, and auto from the right and left sides, background as white, and then also padding 1.5 rem, border dash radius, I will add border radius by 10 pixels amount, and then box dash shadow, we will add box shadow as 0.4 pixel, and then 10 pixel the spread, and then RGBA, I will set the red, green, blue, alpha channels as 0, 0, 0, and then 0.1. So these are the calendar section effects. You will notice that now we have this section. It has a max width of 1000 pixels. If we open the console and then go to here, you will notice that these styles have gone to the calendar div. So now calendar, if you go to here, the same styles we have wrote are now in here. Max width, so the dot calendar, we have max width of 1000. If we cancel this attribute, it will be maximum width of 100%. But if we set the max width as 1000, it will be in this looking div. Okay, the margin will have 2 rem, so 2 rem from top and bottom. So you notice that top and bottom have 2 rem, and from the left and right we have auto. Background as white, we have the background here white, and we have the shadow effect. So without shadow effect it will not be visible, but with the shadow effect it shows up, it rises up. Okay, after the dot calendar section we will move on to the nav btn container. So dot nav btn container dash container. So this container contains, we have coded it in the last section. We have this nav btn container, which is a div that contains two buttons, and these two buttons are the next button and the previous button. So we have two buttons that will navigate through or across the months. Now let's style the container of it. So display flex, we will make the display of them as flex. Why flex? Because we want them to be in a flex order. And then justify dash content, I will justify the content as space dash between, space between. So now you'll notice that we have display flex. So now they are in a row, in row flex, and then the justify content as space between. You can specify it to be as space dash around. We'll have some space around them. You will notice that they will have some space around them. So now they will have some space around the boxes. So you can set this property to whatever you want. It's called justify dash content, and I will specify it as space dash between. So I want the space to be between them, not around them, like that. After it we will have align items, align dash items to be center. So we want to center them, and then margin dash bottom as 1 rem, like that, like that. Next we will move on to the nav btn itself. Now we will style these buttons themselves. So let's go ahead, we can go dot nav btn, nav dash btn. A dot is used to select an element using a class. So font size is 1.5 rem, and then we will specify the background as none. We don't want a background. Okay, we don't want a background for these buttons. And next we will specify border as none, and also the cursor, we want the cursor to be pointer. Currently the cursor is a normal cursor, we want them to be a pointer. Okay, so let's make the cursor as pointer, and also we will use a color of variable. We'll use a variable of primary dash dark. Okay, now if we reload this page, you will have, now we have a cursor as pointer, and they don't have the background or border anymore. Now we will move on to the dot calendar grid. So let's now style the calendar grid section. We have to set this element, the display of this element, as display grid. So now we will specify the display property as grid to be in a grid fashion, because the calendar cells will be in a grid fashion. And then grid dash template dash columns, which is a really important property. We will call the function repeat, and then we will put 7,1 fraction, 1 fr stands for fraction. So display grid and display flex are two of the new CSS attributes, and we are using them here to adjust the displaying of our elements in our HTML page. And then the gap of this element will be as 10 pixel. Okay, so this is the calendar grid. Next I will specify specify a media query here for responsiveness purposes. So let's go here, let's put a comment in here, mobile grid. So media at media, and then max dash width as 124 pixel. So the maximum screen width is 1024 pixels. We want to style the dot calendar grid to be as display flex. We want to adjust the display from grid to be as flex. And mobile devices, we want to be them as flex, so to be in a row fashion. And then flex dash wrap, this is an important property, to be no wrap. So So for it to be as scrollable, we want the elements to be scrollable and no wrap. There's no wrap because wrap will make them as cards. Cards, when you resize the screen, the cards will go under each other. No, we don't want them to be in a column fashion. We want them to be in a row fashion. So we specify flex wrap property as no wrap. Overflow dash x will be as auto. So specify the overflow x property as auto, and then scroll dash snap dash type x, and then mandatory. So this property is really important because we want the calendar cells to be scrollable. So we have to set scroll dash snap dash type x. So we want to scroll across the x-axis, and it's mandatory. Gap as 10 pixel. Okay, so this is for mobile devices, for mobile and tablet devices, for responsiveness purposes. Then we will do for day and day name. Later we will have some day name classes, and then we will specify the minimum width to be as 140 pixels, flex dash shrink as 0, and then scroll dash snap dash align as start. Okay, now we have finished our media query for this media. We have finished the coding for this media. So we have at media. Media helps us run code or run CSS code for specific device screen sizes. We have set the device to be as 124 pixels. We have changed the display mode for the calendar grid from display grid to display flex, and then set the flex wrap as no wrap, the overflow x to be as auto, and then scroll dash snap dash type across the x-axis, and then specify here mandatory gap of 10 pixels. So the gap between each element will be 10 pixels. And also the same for the day and day name. We want the minimum width to be 140 pixels, flex dash shrink 0, and then scroll snap align start. After this media, I will set the .day and also the .day dash name classes to have the text align center. And then .day individually, I want to select the individual day class, and then specify the background to be as #FFF. The border of the day will be as 1 pixel solid #E5 E7 EB, and then the border dash size, I think this will be E5. This should be E5 E7 EB, and then the border radius as 6 pixels. So we want to make a radius effect on the border by the amount of 6 pixels, and then minimum dash height 100 pixels, minimum height 100 pixels, padding 8 pixels, and then the display as flex dash direction as column. So we want it to be displayed in a column fashion, and then justify dash content as flex start. Also we want to set the position property to be relative. So I want the position of this element to be in a relative mode. The cursor should be pointer, so cursor should be pointer. And then transition, we will specify a transition property for it, for the background, just for the background, by the duration 0.2 seconds, and then the effect will be ease. So here we have finished the day attributes. The most important thing here is display flex direction as column, and then justify content as flex start. After we have finished the day attribute, we will go into the day hover. So let's add a hover effect for the day, and then choose the hover effect. I will set the background to be as F3, F4, F6. So a kind of a degree of the white colors. And then .day, .today, class today, as background variable. I will use a variable of primary dash light, so this color, and then border dash color. The color of the border will be as variable of dash dash primary dash dark. And then .date number, I will style the date dash number element to be font weight bold, margin dash bottom. We will set the margin bottom. We will add some margin from the bottom side by the amount 5 pixels. Also, I want to style the event element to have a background using a variable of this color, the primary color. Set the color to be white, and then padding, I will add padding of 3 pixels and 6 pixels from the top and bottom sides as 3 pixels, and from the left and right sides as 6 pixels. Border dash radius as 4 pixels. Margin dash top as 4 pixels, and also we will add some font size by 14 pixels, and then cursor pointer, we will adjust the cursor to be a pointer cursor, and then lastly we will add a transition transform of 0.2 seconds as is. And then we will go ahead and put an event hover effect here, transform. So the transform property in the CSS, it's kind of a transform property that transforms the element. You can use scale of 1.03. So we want to make the element bigger. If you scale by 1, it will be the same size as the element. If you scale it to a number that is lower than 1, for example 0.5, it will make the element half its size. But if you make it 1.5, it will make the element half more than the original size of the element. So in this case, I will make it 1.03. Okay, so scale, it will scale the element. And then let's go into the alert boxes. So let's style the alert boxes. Let's go .alert. Let's give it a max width of 600 pixels, and then margin 1 rem, auto, padding as 1 rem. So alert will be the alert that will be showed after we do an operation. After we add a new appointment or edit an existing appointment, it will show an alert that tells us whether it was successful or it wasn't successful. So this alert will be the alert that is being showed after we do an operation. Border dash radius by 6 pixel, and then text dash align center, and you have to set the font weight to be bold. Font dash weight, an important property, as bold. After we have finished this alert, this generic alert element, let's style the success alert. The success alert will be the same as the original alert, but just have the background as variable of dash dash success. This color we have set way up in the file, this success variable, and also we will set the color to be as the variable of success dash text. So you have another variable called success text. So this alert will be a generic alert that has a max width, margin, padding, border size. But the success message, when the alert is a success message, we will make the background as success and the color as success text. When the alert is a error message, we will set the background as variable dash dash error, and then we will set the color property to be as variable dash dash error dash text. Okay, Now let's move on to the modal pop-up. So the modal pop-up is the modal that will be showed when we click on the edit or add button. So when we click on add or edit button, it will show up or pop up a modal window, and this modal will have these attributes: dot modal, position as fixed. We will set the position as fixed, and then also the inset as 0. Display, I will make the default display of it as none. So we have to make the modal none, the display of the modal as none by default. Align items center, so this modal will not show up until the user clicks on a button. Until the user clicks on the edit or add button, it will be shown. Otherwise, it will not be shown. And then justify dash content center. Also, we have to specify the background as RGBA 0, 0, 0, 0.5. So R red, G green, B blue, and A stands for alpha. Alpha controls the transparency of the color. And then Z index, this Z index property controls the layering order, the order of the layers or the order of the elements. Which element do you want to show above which element? So now we will set it as 9999 for the modal. Why? Because we want the modal to show above all sections. Okay. Next we will have to specify modal content element, modal dash content, and give it background as white, padding as 2 rem, so the padding as 2 rems from all sides, and then border dash radius as 10 pixel by the amount of 10 pixel, and then maximum dash width, max width as 420 pixels, and then we will set the width to be 100%, and also the box dash shadow, we will give it a shadow effect of 0, 8 pixels, and then 20 pixels, and then RGBA of 0, 0, 0, and then 0.2. Next, we will move on to the modal dash content label. So modal dash content, and then inside this element we will have an element of label, which is the label of the inputs. Here we have some labels here of the inputs. These labels, we want to style them to be as width 100%, and then padding 10 pixel, font dash size 1 rem, border as 1 pixel, solid #ctc, and then border dash radius, we will give it radius by amount 5 pixels. So I think we have to set the display to be block here, and also font dash weight to be bold, and also we have to set margin dash bottom to be 1 rem, and then we have to specify margin dash bottom to be as 6 pixel. And I think these properties are not meant for the label itself, but these properties we will add for the input. So let's go now, modal dash content, and then choose input. So the input will have these attributes: width 100%, padding 10 pixels, font size 1 rem, border as 1 pixel, solid #ctc, and then border radius as 5 pixels. Whereas the label will have display block to be displayed in a block fashion, and then font weight bold. Also margin from the top side as 1 rem, and margin from the bottom side as 6 pixels. But the input will have these attributes. Okay, so we have to move on to the modal content button. So now dot modal dash content, and then choose button element. This button element will have margin dash top as 1 rem, and then padding 10 pixels from all the sides, width as 100%, and then border as none, border dash radius, so the amount of radius will be as 6 pixels, and then font dash size 1 rem, cursor as pointer. So we have to set the cursor to be as pointer, font size 1 rem, border radius 6 pixels, and border should be none. Okay, these are important properties for the button. We have to make the border none. To make the border none, border radius 6 pixels, and then font size 1 rem. Now let's choose a specific type of the buttons, which is the submit button, by going modal dash content, and then choose the button element, and then specify in square brackets the type of the button to be equal submit. When the type of the button is submit, go ahead and give it these styles. First of all, the background dash color as variable, which is dash dash primary, and then the color should be white. So we have to make the background color as a primary color, but the color of the text of the button should be white. Dot submit dash btn, the same thing here. We have to make the background dash color as this color, crimson color, which is kind of a reddish color, and then color as white, or hash FFF if you want to use the hash system. Let's go ahead and style the modal dash content, and then choose the button last dash child. So we want to select, this is a selector in CSS. If you want to select the last child button from the modal content, you can go modal dash content and then space, and then choose button, put a semicolon, and then choose last child. And then we can go and specify the background color as E5, E7, EB, semicolon, and then the color as hash 333. Now let's style the drop down menu by going drop down for multiple events. So now we will style the drop downs for multiple events. Hash event selector, we will go and give it width as 100%, so a full width as 100%, and then padding as 10 pixels from all sides, font size as 1 rem, and then margin dash top, the top margin as 1 rem, and then margin dash bottom as 1 rem, and then we can specify border dash radius to be as 5 pixels, and also now border 1 pixel solid hash CCC. Okay, now let's specify the day overlay. When we hover over a day, we want to show an overlay hover or overlay effect that will show 2 buttons, add and edit. So overlay, let's put a icon for the check mark, overlay buttons logic, or CSS logic. Now let's go and style it by going .day dash overlay. This overlay should have position as absolute, and then we have to go top 6 pixels, right 6 pixels from the right section, and then display as none. We want to make it none. It's display as none, and then flex dash direction column gap as 4 pixels, and z index as 2 to make it appear above the cell. And then we will specify day hover effect, comma, or day hover. When we hover over day, over the day element, we want to select another element, which is day-overlay. This is a complex way of selecting elements. When we hover over this element, I want to select this element and do something on this element. When we hover on this element, okay? So make the display as flex. We want to make the display as flex. And then I want to select the overlay button by going overlay-btn, background property. I want to use a variable of primary-dark, and then color as white, and also I want to set the padding 4 pixels from top and bottom, and also 8 pixels from the right and left sides. From top and bottom I want to set 4 pixels, and from left and right 8 pixels. Font size as 12 pixels, and then the border should be none, and also the border radius 4 pixels, and then also the cursor pointer. Let's make the cursor as pointer. And then transition, we will set transition property to be background 0.2 seconds ease. So I want to transition the effect of background by the duration of 0.2 seconds and make the effect as ease. The last thing in here in this section, CSS section, will be overlay-btn hover, and then we will set the background color to be a variable using the variable primary. The background color, or the background if you want a shorthand version. So now congratulations, we have finished the CSS section correctly. I believe now this will make the styling of our page look nice. Yep, and it's like that. You will notice that some elements have been ignored or have been disappeared. Why? Because we have set display as none. As you notice, display none. We want to show a modal when we hover over the days or cells. In the next section, we will dive into the JavaScript section, where we will create the logic that will loop through the cells and then create some elements in here, create some divs, and then you will notice that when we click on some cell, it will show up a modal that will add an appointment or add a new task or event. And when we have a day that has existing events, we will hover over it and it will show an overlay, which we have styled in this section. Overlay. We have created a nice overlay that will show up edit and add buttons. When we click on those buttons, it will show up a modal that will edit or delete existing events or tasks. So meet you in the next section. Welcome back. In this section, we will dive into PHP code. So let's create a file called calendar.php, and then let's go ahead and start a PHP tag like this, exclamation, a bigger than notation, and then question mark, and then PHP. Okay, now let's go ahead and first of all create a file called connection that will connect to the database. If you go to the connection file, it will be as a empty PHP file. Let's start a PHP tag like this, and then put a comment. Connect. We will connect to local MySQL server using examp or mamp. So depending on what you have, examp, mamp or wamp, whatever server you have. Currently I am using examp, so whatever server you have, we will connect locally to MySQL server. First of all, I will create a variable called connection equals new, then the keyword new. I will create a new instance, a new object of the class or of the function MySQL or MySQLi This is a function in PHP language, and then we have to pass in some parameters. First of all, local host, because now we are on the local host, and then we have to pass in here the username. We will pass here root. So currently the username is root. You can specify it in a variable. You can go and create username variable equals root, and then you can refer to this variable by using username like that, or you could pass it straightforward, whatever way you prefer. You can choose, it's up to you. And then the password is nothing. We are on the local host. I don't have password currently to access a database. And then we will create a database called course_calendar. I will connect to this database. Okay, the next step is connection, and then I will go ahead and call this method, which is set set_charset as UTF-8 MB4. Now I will access the PHP MyAdmin by going to the localhost /PHP MyAdmin. It will redirect me to PHP MyAdmin tool on the localhost, and then I can create a new database. Currently I have a database here called course calendar. I have created previously, which has this kind of structure: ID, course name, instructor name, start date, end date, and then created at. What you will do is you will have to create a column called ID of this type, okay, of this type, integer 11, course name, variable character 255, instructor name varchar, which is variable character, meaning a variable amount of characters of 255, and then start date, end date, and then create at. Or let's in this course, or let's in this video create this database by going localhost and then open a new PHP MyAdmin tab, and then I will create a new database called, for example, calendar, and then set its Unicode as UTF-8 MB4 General C, and then let's click on create. Now it has created a new database called calendar. So you can notice this is a new DB, a new database called calendar. I will create a table here called calendar appointments, or let's make it short, let's call it appointments, and then the number of columns here: 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So we have 6 columns. Let's go and put 6. Create. Now let's name these columns. We have ID. We have to set the type of ID column as integer and the length as 11, and then we have to set it to be auto incremented. So this is a really important attribute. We have to set it as auto incremented, and once you set it as auto incremented, it will become a primary key. So the ID column, as you notice, it's a primary key. It has this icon of primary key. And then the next column as course name. So what is the name of the course? Course_name. The type of this column should be variable character, varchar, and then the length should be 255. The third column is instructor name, the name of the instructor, instructor_name, instructor name as variable character, and then the length as 255. And then start date, you have to specify a start _date as date, as type, as of type date. If you scroll down here, you will go, we have some string types, we have some date, we have a date type, okay? We have a date type, we have to choose date. And then end date as date. Also we have to create a new column called end date as of type date. So date, and then the last column is called created _at of type date. or of type timestamp. Okay, now we can click on save and it will save this table. As you can notice here we have a database called calendar. Inside this database we have a table called appointments, and this table appointments have these columns. Now we can go ahead and go back to our calendar.php file and write our PHP logic in here. The first thing is we have to include the database connection of this file. We have to include this connection to this file in order to be able to connect to the database and interact with the database. So we have to include the file which is connection.php. Why? We have to include the connection.php file to connect to the database. The second step is we have to create 3 variables. The first one is success message equals empty string. The second is error message. So these variables will contain the messages, whether it was success message, it will be contained into here, or whether it was error message, it will be stored into this variable, and so on. And then events from DB, we will return some events or get back when we fetch or when we retrieve or pull the events from the database. We will store them in this array. So we will create an empty array in here. So initialize a new array. Init is short for initialize, or we could write initialize a new array to store the fetched events. The next thing here is handle add appointment. When we add a new appointment, we want to add some logic here to handle that add or insert appointment by going if. We will create an if condition here, and then if server, if the server, the magical variable server in PHP, if the server and then the attribute request underscore method, it must be capital. So we have to write it in capital letters. Request underscore method. If the request method equals post, that means when we send some data from the form, if the request method is a post method, and by going and operator and the post, the magical variable post action, and the action then put double exclamation marks, double question marks, string equals add. And if the post action parameter, if it's not empty, if this action parameter equals add, then we will do something. So this is an if condition to check, that checks or that inspects whether the request method is a post action, and also the post action property or attribute equals add. Okay, then we will do course equals trim, the function trim. We will trim the function trim, simply strip white space. It will trim or cut the white space or other characters from the beginning and end of a string. And then we will pass into here post. We will get the data post from the magical variable post, and then I will choose the property course underscore name if it's not empty by going double question marks and then empty string. You have to put a semicolon, otherwise PHP will cry out. Or we could use single quotation marks, whatever you would like. And then instructor variable equals trim, the function trim, to trim the white space from the beginning and end of strings, and then pass into here the magical variable post, and then choose the instructor underscore name, and then just put like that. Thirdly, the variable start, the start date, the starting date, I will fetch it, or we will retrieve it from the variable post underscore post, and then we will pass into here start underscore date. The same thing goes into here, and then end equals post end underscore date, and then put double question marks empty string. After these variables, after we have gotten these variables, extracted them, after we have extracted these variables from the post variable, we can go and do an if condition if the course and instructor and start, the variable start and the variable end. So if these variables exist, if these variables already exist and we have gotten them correctly, then I will create a statement, a SQL statement equals connection. This variable is coming from that file, is coming from this connection file, which is connection. I will connect to this database and then prepare a new statement, and then prepare a statement. This statement will be insert into the table appointments, which I will copy its name from here, appointments. Insert into appointments, and then specify these columns: course underscore name, comma, instructor underscore name, comma, start underscore date, comma, end underscore date. I will insert these values, which are question mark, 4 question marks as placeholders to insert them or inject them later, to inject these values later. And then I will close this prepare bracket here and then put a semicolon. The next step is call statement. The next step is call statement variable, and then bind underscore param. This bind param is really fun. Why? Because we have to put 4 S letters. If you have here 4 question marks, you will have to put into here 4 S letters. But if you have 10 question marks, you will have to put into here 10 S letters. So it's quite fun to count them, and then pass into here course, comma, instructor, comma, start, comma, end. Statement, and then call the method execute. This method will execute this SQL query, and then header, I will header the user, redirect the user to the location, which is it's a good practice to close this statement. So statement and then call the method close. Why do we have to close it? So to keep resources, to keep PHP busy with that statement. So we have to close it. Always, if you open some statements or files, you have to close them using a close method or close function. And then location, I will specify location and then put a dot sign. In PHP, when you want to concatenate strings or concatenate substrings, we use dot. We don't use plus as in Python or JavaScript. We use a dot notation to concatenate, and then we have to go the server magical variable and then choose the attribute PHP underscore self, and then concatenate a third string, a third substring, and then put a question mark success. If this operation happened and it's successfully happened, I will send the user to this file with a parameter success equals 1. Okay, so success equals 1, and we don't forget to put a semicolon, otherwise PHP will cry out. And then exit will exit out of this file. Else, let's put an else command in here. So else, if we don't have these variables, or if we don't have one of these variables, we will add a else logic here. Else, we have to redirect the user to this location, which is location, and then concatenate the string server, and then choose the parameter PHP underscore self, and then concatenate this string, question mark, error. I will pass error equals 1. And then exit. You have to exit out of this script, out of this PHP script. Now we have finished our handle add appointments. Let's move on to the next step, which is handle edit appointment. The same thing, if condition, if the server variable, and then choose this request underscore method property or attribute. If this equals post, then I will and if the post, the magical variable post, and then choose the parameter or attribute or property action, and then put double question marks, single quotation marks, equals edit. If the action is edit, then I will go and you can make it in single quotation marks, and also we can put in here 3 equal marks. If this logic happens, or if these conditions are met, we can go and id equals post. We will call the post variable and then select the property event underscore id equals, and then go double quotation marks null. Otherwise we'll make it as null. And then course, the course name equals trim. I will trim takes for me a string and trim it. So trim post, and then also I will select the course underscore name attribute, and then put double question marks, and then specify empty single quotation marks. Instructor, I will get the instructor name from the post, from the sent post variable, and then specify instructor underscore name, and then specify it as null, otherwise as empty string. Also the start date, the starting date equals the magical variable post, and then choose the attribute start underscore date, put double question marks as empty string, and then end equals post, and then choose end underscore date, double quotation marks, and then single quotation, double question marks, and then single quotation marks, and then put a semicolon. Now we have gotten these variables in a correct way, and we have stored them in these variables. We can check if we actually have these variables by going if id variable and course and instructor and start and end. We can go ahead and create a statement equals connection, and then I will prepare a new statement which is update. And this time I will update the table appointments. Let's copy its name, update the table appointments, and then pass it into here. Update the table appointments, set the course underscore name to equal question mark, comma, instructor underscore name to equal question mark, comma, start underscore date to equal question mark, and then end underscore date equals question mark, where id equals question mark. And then we have to put a semicolon after this parenthesis or after this brackets, and then we have to bind the parameters by going stmt, short for statement, and then bind underscore parameters, and then pass into here ssi, then pass course, comma, instructor, comma, start, comma, end, comma, id. So we are binding these variable names to these question marks. The third step is statement, and then execute it. We have to execute it by going execute function, and then we have to go header, we have to go statement, and then close this statement. The last step is header. We have to redirect the user to the location which is dot to concatenate, and then server PHP underscore self, and then put concatenation mark, question mark, success equals 2, and then semicolon, and we have to exit out of this PHP script. Else, if we notice here, we have this condition, if request method, okay, and then we have an inner loop, if ID, course, instructor, start and date are all available. We have to put an else here, and then specify header, location, and then dot to concatenate to the server variable, and then choose PHP underscore self, and then concatenate to the error, question mark, error equals 2, and then put a semicolon, and then we have to exit out of this script. Exit. The third step, or the third major step here, is we have to handle delete appointment by going if server, if the server, and then choose the property request underscore method, request method equals post, and by putting and double and marks, and post variable, and then choose the action property. If the action equals delete, then I will go ahead and ID, fetch the ID from the post variable by going post, and then extract the ID, the event underscore ID. So I am extracting the ID attribute outside of the post variable, and then put double question marks null, otherwise it will be none. If ID, if we do have ID, I will go and create a statement by connecting to the database, and then calling a method in here, prepare. This method is called prepare. I will prepare an SQL statement to be run or to be executed on the database, which is in this case delete from the table appointments, which I will copy its name to be exactly it, appointments where ID column equals question mark, and then statement I will bind parameter. So bind param function, really important function. This function bind or maps the parameters to these question marks, bind underscore param, and then I comma ID. Statement stmt execute, I will execute the statement, and then stmt the statement, and then we have to close this statement, or close this statement. Header, and then we have to redirect the user to the server, which is PHP self, and then we have to go and redirect him to the success by a success message equals 1 equals 3, and then exit out of PHP. Now the last thing is success and error messages. We want to handle success and error messages. If is set, the function is set, determine if a variable is declared and is different than null. So this function checks whether the variable is declared or not, and also at the same time it checks whether if this variable is different than the object null. If is set, and then pass into here the get variable, the get magical variable success, well, then we will call our variable success message, which we have defined way at the top of this file, success message, and then we have to put equals match. We have to use the keyword match, and then we have to put an expression in here, get expression success. I will get the success message from the get, If the success message match 1, then I will return this message, which is the check mark icon, and then appointment added successfully, comma, if it is 2, then I will return a check mark, and then write in here appointment updated successfully, because when we do an editing mode, we will return 2. Here, when the action is add, we specified the success to be 1. When we update or edit, when the action is edit, we specify the success as 2. And when we handle delete actions, we specify the success as 3. I think we have missplit success in here. Success. Like this, and also like this. Yeah. So now I think successfully is now successfully. Like that. Comma 3. When we have 3 as action, then we will put a check mark or put a bin mark, and then appointment declared or deleted. Appointment deleted successfully. Comma, the default, well, when it's not 1 and not 2 and also not 3, the default will retain nothing. Then we will put in here semicolon. You can make it single quotation marks. And then if is set, also we will use the isSet function. IsSet the variable get, the magical variable get, and then choose the error parameter or error attribute or error. We will set the error message variable that we have declared at the top of the file, error message, to be equal or to equal exclamation mark icon, and then we have to put error occurred. There is an error occurred. Let's make it single quotation marks. Error occurred, and then please check your input. Okay, you have to check your input, and then put a semicolon. Then I will put fetch here, calendar. We'll use a calendar icon here. Fetch all appointments, and spread over date range. So I have to fetch all appointments and spread over date range by going result equals connection, and then we have to execute a query in here, which is select asterisk from appointments. I will copy the name of the table. Okay, so select asterisk from appointments, and then put a semicolon. So we have selected every single row or every single column, all the columns from appointments. If result variable and result fetch underscore fetch, and then call num underscore rows, or by going result and then call the method num underscore rows is greater than 0. So when we fetch these columns, if we have result and also we have the result, the number of rows, so the number of rows of the result is greater than 0, then and only then while row equals result, and then fetch all associative, fetch underscore associative array. Then we have to go start equals new we have to set, we have to instantiate a new object from the datetime class by going new datetime class, and then pass into here. T should be capital with the Pascal case, because this is a class. We have to use datetime class and then pass into here row start underscore date. So we have to pass the start date that we fetch from the SQL database. We have to pass it to the datetime class and instantiate a new object from this class, new datetime. The same thing with end. So new datetime class, and then pass into here row, and then pass end underscore date. Then while start is less than or equal end, we will go ahead and call our variable events from DB, which is defined into here, events from DB, and then we have to fill this array by going empty square brackets equals square brackets, and then put ID as ID in string format. ID matches or corresponds to this value, row ID, comma, we have title, and then we have to go and put in here row as like that, square brackets, and then row, these are curly brackets, and then row, and then put square brackets as like that, course underscore name minus outside of the square brackets minus, and then row, and then choose the instructor name, dash name or underscore name, instructor underscore name, comma, date. It will be mapped to the start variable start, and then format. I will format the start as year dash month dash days, comma, and then start the variable, the property start will be mapped to the value row, and then choose the column start underscore date, comma, end. I will choose the column end, and the column end will be mapped to row, and then we will choose the column end underscore date. After this list, I will put semicolon and then start, and I will call the function or method modify. We will modify here and then pass a string that contains +1 white space day, or we can use single quotation marks as +1 and then day. And also here we could use single quotation marks year, capital Y dash M refers to months, dash D refers to days. This is the format of the start date, and then we will have to connection and close the connection by going connection, close the connection. And with that being said, congratulations, we have finished writing our PHP logic in this video. So we have finished constructing our HTML structure, building the structure and architecture of the page, and then we have decorated and styled our CSS file using CSS styling codes, flexbox and grid. And then we have created the PHP logic, which inserts, adds, or updates, edits, or deletes, or removes appointments or tasks or events from the database or table appointments. In the next video or in the next section, we will dive into writing JavaScript code, which will make our page interactive, and also make our calendar app interactive with the user to show the pop-up model, and also to be in a dynamic order. So see you there, and thanks for watching. In this section, we will dive into JavaScript section. So let's go into the calendar.js file and then start coding.js. The first thing we have to do is create a constant and name it as calendar el. El is short for element, so calendar element equals document. We will select the document dot get element by id. So we want to get an element by an id, and then pass in here id value as calendar. Then constant, another constant called month el, the month element equals, or month year element to be comprehensive name, document dot get element by id, get element by id, and then pass the id as month year. We need also a third constant, name it as modal element. We need to get the modal element equals document dot get element by id, and then pass in here event modal, capital M. Notice the capital M. Now we will create a let variable and call it current date, capital D, equals new date. So we will initialize a new date object. The second step here is we will create a function and name it as render calendar. This function will take from me date equals new date. So we will initialize this function with the parameter date equals new instance of the date class or of the date object, and then the calendar element, calendar, if you choose calendar el dot inner html, we will update the inner html property or attribute of this element, calendar element, to equal an empty string. Then we will initialize a constant called year equals date dot get, notice, get full year. And we know that JavaScript uses camel case. The first letter is small, the first letter of each subsequent word is capital. So F is capital, year is capital, Y is capital. Then constant, name it as month equals date dot get month. We will get the month, so get full year, get the full year format, get month, it gets the month. And then a constant called today equals date or equals new date object. Then we will create a constant called total days. So the total number of days equals new date, and then pass in here the constant here that we have created above, comma month, so month plus 1 comma 0, then dot get date. So we want to get the date using the get date method. And then we will create a constant called first day of month. So the first day of month, we need to select or detect what is the first day of the month. First day of month equals new date class, and then pass in here year comma month comma 1 dot get day method. Now we have created our constants and variables. We can go ahead and use them. So now we want to display month and year by going month year element, the month year element dot text content. So text content updates the text content of an element. It's similar to the inner HTML, but it just deals with text. Equals date dot to local date string. This is a function that takes from me a local string, array of local strings, or array of local objects, and then convert a date to local date string. So we have to pass in here the local as en-us, comma, and then pass in here an object that contains a key or property as month with the value long. So as the value long, comma, year as the value numeric. And then we have to put a semicolon here for JavaScript. And then constant, we will create constant called week days, the days of the week. It's just an array of the days names. So Sunday short is sun, Monday short is mon, we which is Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday. And then we have to go and loop through it using a for each. So weekdays dot for each loop, for each, and then pass in here day. So it takes for me a parameter day, and then we will do an arrow function. This is a shorthand function, a short version for functions. It's called arrow function, and then specify in here constant as day day element equals document dot create element. For each day we will create an element which is a div. So we will create a div element for each single, or for every single day. For every single day we will create element as div, and then we will take this day element and update its class name property, which is the class, to equal the value day dash name, as you can see in here. Then day element dot text content, we will update the text content property to equal day, just the day parameter, and then put a semicolon. Then the calendar element dot append child, we will append a new child which is the day element. So we're taking the day element and appending it to the calendar element, just as you can see in here, and then put a semicolon in here. The next step is we need to create a for loop for, and then as you can as you know, you have to initialize a variable let I equals 0, initialize it from 0 to start from 0. I will work as long as I is less than first day of month, then semicolon I plus plus, and in each loop we will increase the I by one unit. Calendar element, so calendar element dot append child, we will append the child. Document dot create element, we will create an element using the DOM function. DOM is short for document object model, and then pass in here the element div, and then put a semicolon here. After this for loop we will loop through days. So let's go to the loop. Let's loop through days by using a for loop. So for let day equals 1 as long as day is less than or equal total days, and then day plus plus. For each day we will create a constant called date string equals a tilde, which is this new way of writing strings in JavaScript, and then put $year minus $, and then we will pass in here the string class, string capital S, and then pass in here month plus 1, and then dot, we have to call dot pad string, pad start, and then pass in here 2, 0. So we will pad it with 2 zeros. Minus, outside of this we will put a minus sign, and then $, string, and then pass in here day dot pad start, we have to pad the start, and pass in here max length as 2, and then the 0 as the string, and then put a semicolon. Then we will create a constant which is cell. So the cells, by going document dot create element, we will create an element, create element, and then pass in here the name of the element, which is div. Then cell dot class name, we will set the class name as day. And if you recall, we have styled this day class in CSS. If we will specify if condition, if day equals today dot get date, and if month equals today dot get month method, and year equals today dot get full year. If so, we will run some logic in here, which is cell dot class list dot add, we will add the today element. So today, pass today as string, to the class list. And then constant, we will create a constant which is date element equals document dot create element, create capital E element, and then pass in here the string div by going div. And then we have to go outside of this semicolon, date element dot class name, capital N, as you can notice, capital N equals date dash number, so the date number of the day. Then date element date dot text content equals day. Then we will append this child to the cell element by going append child. You can notice that we have a capital C, so append child, and then pass in here a node which is date element. After this, we will create a constant called events today. This constant will equal events dot filter. We have to filter over the events by going events dot filter events, and then put a dot filter function, pass in here e as a parameter, and then an arrow function e dot date equals date string, where the date equals the date string. Then we will initialize a constant as event box equals document dot create element function, which creates an element in the DOM, which is document object model, pass in here div. Then event box, we will add a class name as the events class by going events semicolon. Then we have to render, we will go to have to render events by going events today, and then dot for each. We will create a for each here function, event, and then do an arrow function. For each event, we will create a constant ev, which is event, short for event, equals document dot create element. So we are creating some elements here using the create element function, and then passing here div ev event dot class name equals the string event. Then we will initialize a constant course course element equals document dot create element, and then passing here div course element dot class name. So we are creating some variables for each thing here, for the course, for the event, and then passing here equals course as the class name, course course element dot text content. We have to update the text content property to equal event dot title dot split. We have to split it by the white space dash white space, and then at index 0. And then constant, we have to name it as instructor instructor element equals document dot create element, and then pass in here div instructor element, and then tap on instructor element dot class name. We have to tap on the class name property to equal the string or value instructor element. We have to go to instructor element dot text content equals text content equals this icon of the teacher. You can put this icon of teacher or trainer, teacher. And then we have to go plus event dot title dot split, and then pass in here white space dash white space at index 1. So we have to put here white space. Then constant, we will create a constant for the time element. We have now to create a time element by going document dot create element for the time, which is also a div time element time element dot class name equal time, the string time. Then time element dot text content, we have to tap over time element dot text content capital C equals this clock icon, for example, if you want to use some icons, so clock icon. Then concatenate with the event dot start underscore time plus string of this dash, and then plus event dot end underscore time. Then we have to go ev the event dot append child. We have to append this child, which is course element that we have created above, and also we have to append another child, which is the instructor element child, by going instructor el, which we have created in here, create element div. And then we have to append event.append child, append child function, pass in here time element. The same thing goes event box dot append child, and then pass in here ev. We have to append the event to the event box. Now we will continue with the overlay buttons by going overlay buttons, create a constant, which is overlay equals document dot create capital E element. So create element, we have to create an element and pass in here the name of an element, which is div. Then overlay dot class name equals day dash overlay, which we have styled in the CSS. Overlay day overlay. Then constant add btn equals document dot create element, and then pass in here a div, add, pass in here a button. So we have to create a button element by going document dot create element and then pass button as a button element. Then add btn this element. We have to add a class name, we have to inject a class name, which is overlay dash btn. So you can notice the trend of creating some elements and then injecting some class names for each element. And then add btn dot text content. We have to change the text content of this element, of this button element, by going putting a string plus icon and then add, to add a new event or to add new task. Add btn dot on click. We will use the on click event equal this e, which is short for event, and then put an arrow function, e dot stop propagation. This function will stop the propagation, and then open modal. We will call this function, which we will create after this function, called open modal for add, and then pass in here date str, this date string, and then we will put semicolon in here. We will go overlay dot append child and then pass add btn. So we are appending the child btn to this overlay dot add append child add button. Then we will check an if condition here. If events today dot length is greater than or bigger than 0, then we will create a constant, which is edit button. We will get the edit button to equal document dot create element. We are creating a new element, which is a div element, which is a button element, in this case button element. And then edit btn dot class name. We will update the class name to be overlay dash btn, and then we will go edit btn dot text content equal edit btn dot on click. When on clicking on this button, we want to run a function, which is an simple arrow function that stops propagation. So stop propagation, and then open modal for edit. We have to call this function and then pass in here events today. Then we will call overlay dot append child. We have to append a new child, which is edit btn, the element that we have created in here, by going document dot create element button. And then we have to, outside of this if condition, we will run cell dot append child, pass in here overlay, and then cell dot append child. We have to append a new child, which is event box. Also the calendar el element dot append child. We have to append the child, which is cell. So the JavaScript is generating the content for the HTML. Now we have finished writing this whole function, which is called this render calendar. This function will render the calendar on the page. After this function, we will create a new function or another function for adding event model. So we will go add event model function, and then we will call it open modal for add, and then pass in here date str, date string. This function will go document.get element by id. We'll get a new element by id, which is form action. This element, this form dot value, we will set the value as equal add. So we are simply here, we are selecting, or we are choosing an element using an id by going get element by id, this form action, and setting its value to equal the string add. The same thing goes for here, document.get element by id, get element by id, and then pass event id, capital E, dot value equal empty string, document.get element by id, and then choosing an element which is delete event id and setting its value as an empty string. The same for the course name. We have to go document.get element by id and then select course name element, and we have to set its value as empty string. So we are initializing the values of the value as empty string. The same goes for the instructor name element. You have to go instructor underscore and instructor capital N name. So the instructor name dot value attribute equals an empty string. The same thing goes also for the start date. We have to go get element by id and then choose start date dot value equals empty string. No, this time equals date str, date string. So we have to set the value as date str capital S that we are passing into here. We are passing it to the function open modal for add. Now we have three more elements, which is end date. We have to go document.get element by id end date, and we have to set its value to the date str, also date string, document.get element by id, and then choose start time, capital T, start time, and then set its value attribute to equal 09 and then colon 00. Document.get element by id, choose end time. We have to choose end time element, and then go dot value equals 10, and then put 00 here after a colon sign. Now after we have initialized the values, as you can see, some with empty values, some with some default values that are passing to the function, and some with some starting point times, we can now go ahead and update them by going constant selector. We will create a constant selector equals document.get element by id. We are getting an element by id, get element by id, and then pass in here events selector or event selector. So event, one event, and then capital S selector. Then we will create a constant wrapper has to equal document dot get element by id, and then choose the event selector wrapper, and we have capital W, capital S, and small e. So event selector wrapper, and then put semicolon. If selector, if we do have a selector, and if we have also a wrapper available, we can go ahead and do selector.innerHTML. We will update the innerHTML to be an empty string. Then wrapper.style.display equals the none value. You have to make the display of the wrapper as none. Outside of this if condition, we will go and put in here modal element, modal el dot style dot display, set the display attribute to equal flex So we are displaying the modal by going modal element dot style dot set the display property to equal flex. Then we will create a third function, which is edit event modal by going function, the keyword function, and then name the function open modal for edit. This function takes from me one parameter, which is events on date, and then this function will set the document dot get element by id, and then pass in here form action, set the value as equal edit. So we are setting the value of the form action. The action we are trying to do is editing some event, some existing event. And then we have to go modal element dot style dot display. We have to display it using a flex display mode. Then we will create a constant called selector equal document dot get element by id, and then pass in here event selector. After that, we will go constant wrapper equal document dot get element by id. We will choose an element called event selector wrapper, and then we have to go selector dot inner HTML, update the inner HTML. We will update the inner HTML to equal option. So we are filling that select element or that selected element with some options. The option element in the drop down menu, we are populating some option elements. Each option represents one whole task. Option disabled, and then selected. We have to pass in here the two attributes, disabled and selected. And then right in here choose event dot and then slash option. Now we will loop through the events on date by going events on date dot for each function. This function will take from me one parameter as e, and then put an arrow function. We have to create a constant option equals document. We have to create an element, as option. So in dynamic web apps, the JavaScript populates the HTML content. So in the JavaScript section, we are creating new elements and populating some new HTML elements through JavaScript. Option dot value, set the value to equal JSON, the JSON class dot stringify method. We have to stringify it by passing the event to the stringify function, and then option dot text content equals tilde, and then set here e dot title space $, or put a parenthesis, and then $, select e dot start, and then put some arrow here, arrow icon, and then initialize a $, and then e dot end. We have to access the end attribute. Selector dot append child. We have to append this child to the option. So we are appending the child option to the selector. And each time for each event, we are appending the option element that we have created into here. We have created the option element and append it to the selector. Next, I will create an if condition here to check events on date. If events on date dot length, if its length is greater than 1, then go wrapper dot style dot display equals block. Otherwise, else. So other than that, we will go wrapper dot style dot display. We will set the display to equal none. We have to disappear it by going wrapper dot style dot display equals none. Then we will handle event selection by going handle event selection. This is a new function that we will create after a minute. So JSON dot stringify, pass in here events on date at index 0. it's called handle event selection, and we have to close this as semicolon. This function will handle the event selection by going function. We will create a new function called handle event selection, and then pass in here event JSON as capital S, capital O, and N. JSON is short for JavaScript object notation. So this function will do populate, will populate form from selected event, constant event. This event constant will equal JSON.parse. We have to parse the JSON content and then pass in here event JSON, the parameter event JSON. Then document, we will select an element using an ID, which is event ID dot value equals event dot ID. The same thing goes for the get element by ID, which is delete event ID dot value equals event dot ID. The last thing, we will create a constant which will takes from me course, comma, instructor in this kind of syntax equals event dot title dot split. We have to split, pass a string, white space dash white space dot map. I have to map e event and then arrow function e dot trim. We have to trim it in case there are some beginning white spaces or ending white spaces. Then we will go document dot get element by ID and choose the course name element dot value equals course, or we will set it as empty string. The same thing goes for the instructor name and for the whole. So I will copy paste it. So the only thing you have to change is the names of the instructor name and the names of the elements. So course name, and then we have to set this as instructor name, and then start date, end date, start time, and then end time. Then we have to change here from course. Of course, we need to make sure that we have that we set the value attribute for each one as its corresponding value. In this case, we will set it as instructor. Then we will set it as event.start, then event.end. The same thing goes for the time, event.start time. Now you may have the question, from where do we have this event time or start time? We didn't include it in the app, but we will create a new section in this video. Then we will update the HTML, CSS, and PHP to include this new feature, which is the starting time and ending time. So in the next section, we will dive into how to append this new feature of time, start time and end time for each of these files. For the HTML and CSS and PHP files, how to include this new feature of starting time and ending time. The next, we will create a function called close modal. This function will close a modal, which will take our modal element dot style dot display equals none. So make the display property as none for the modal element. This function will close the modal. Then I will create a comment here, month navigation. This function will navigate through months navigation by going function and then name it as change month. Pass in here offset. We have to pass an offset parameter, and then current date. We have to go to current date dot set month, and then pass in here current date dot get month method plus offset. We have to add an offset parameter. So we are adding the offset parameter, the value of this offset parameter, to the get month that we have gotten from the current date. and then render calendar. We have to call that long function that we have created above, which is called render calendar. It takes from me just one parameter, which is current date. So we are passing current date and then to the render calendar function in order to render the calendar. The very last function is a live digital clock. So that clock will not work until we define this function. So live digital clock, by going function and then name it as update clock, pass in here. It takes from me no parameters. Then constant now, we will name the constant as now equals new date. We have to start a new date by going new date object or date class. The same thing, we have to create a clock variable equals document.get element by ID. We need to get the element of the clock using its ID. So document.get element by ID and then get the element clock, small clock. Clock.text content, we have to set the content of this element by going equals an array. This array will take from me now the now constant, which is a new instance of the date object, now dot, and then access the method get hours by going get hours method dot toString. We have to convert it into a string format. Dot pad start, we have to pad it, put some padding, which is the max length as 2, and then comma, we have to pass in here 0 to add some padding for the hours. Now dot get minutes, we have to get minutes, and then we have to convert it into a string by going to toString dot pad start, and then pass in here the max length as 2, comma, and then the character 0. The same thing goes for the seconds. So get seconds method, this method will get the seconds dot toString. We have to convert it into a string, so it specifies a radix for converting numeric values to strings, to convert some numeric value to strings, and then dot pad start, pass in here 2, 0. This array we have to join it by going dot join. So the join method is a popular method, and then join based on this character colon, and close it with a semicolon. Now the initialization process, by going render calendar and pass in here current date, and then update clock. We have to call the function or invoke the function update clock. So we are invoke the function update clock, and also we have to call the function set interval, and the set interval will run the function every predefined amount of time. So every second, which is 1000 milliseconds, every second we will run this function, which is update clock. So we will update the clock every second. The clock will be updated. So with that being said, we have finished writing our whole JS code. I believe now our app will work. In the next section, as I told you, we will add a new feature, which is adding the start time and end time of each event. Then we will check and make sure that our app will work. So see you in this next section. In the last section, I noticed that I have some errors in the JavaScript and PHP files. If you go to the JavaScript file, I mistyped the comma and typed in semicolons instead of commas. So we have to replace these semicolons as commas to prevent the errors and to get the JavaScript clean and ready to go. Once we solve this issue, also in the PHP file, in here I have mistyped this notation as equals and then this notation. I have to change this equal sign as dash. So we have to change, or to solve this problem, rather than using an equal sign, we have to use a dash sign or dash mark, because we are accessing a method. We are accessing a method called format, and formatting the start as year dash month dash day. Okay, so now we have solved all of the problems. And also in this section I will extend and incorporate a new feature in our app, which is the start time and end time for each event. So not just we are using dates, but also we are incorporating the time, the start time and end time. So to achieve this goal, we have to go to the modal here inside the modal div, and specifically right after the end date, right below the end date, we have to add a label tag with a for attribute as start time with capital T, and then write in here start time, and then close this label tag. Then I will add an input of type time. So we have to add an input of type time, or the type as time, and then give it a name as start underscore time, then the ID as start time, and you have to make this input required. Also we will add another label tag with a for attribute end time, and then write in here end time. Then add a new input with a type of time, and add a name for it as end underscore time, and the ID as end time, and make this input required. So now we have achieved the codes for HTML successfully. We have to go to the CSS and also scroll up a little bit. Right here we have to update or edit the event to be as the following. So the event now has a background of variable primary, has a color white, padding 3 pixels from the top and bottom, and 6 pixels from right and left. We have to update this to be 6 pixels from top and bottom and 8 pixels from right and left. Then the border radius, we will make it 6 pixels, margin top as 6 pixels, and then font size 13 pixels rather than 14, cursor as pointer, and then line height, I will add the line dash height as 1.4. Then display flex, we will make the display flex for the event, and we will give it flex direction as column, so it will be in column fashion. Align dash items as flex dash start, so that it starts from the beginning, and then box dash shadow, we will add a shadow for this event element, 0 pixels, 1 pixel, and then 4 pixel the spread RGBA as 0, 0, 0, 0.1. Then transition transform by the duration of 15 seconds, and the effect is ease. Next we will keep the hover effect as it is, just we will decrease the amount by 1% by giving 1.02, and then we will add a new element in here, which is event and then dot course. So we will style the course element by going font weight. We will make the font weight as bold to make the text bolder, and opacity, and we have to go font size 13 pixels. Make the font size 13 pixels. Also dot event and then dot instructor, we will style the instructor as font size 12 pixels, and then opacity as 0.85. So it has an opacity rate or opacity degree of 0.85. Dot event and then select dot time element, font size 12 pixels, margin dash top as 3 pixels, and then color as F3, 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 F3. Yep. Dot event dash meta, we have to go font size 12 pixels, and then color as EEF, line height 1.2. Now we have finished CSS. We can move towards PHP now. In the PHP file, we have to add the variables of time here. So we have to go start time. So right below this end date variable, we have to go and add a variable start time equals post, and then choose the item start underscore time, otherwise it will be an empty string. And then end time equals the variable, the magical variable post underscore post, and then choose the element end underscore time, and then put double question marks and then single quotation marks as an empty string. The next edit is that we have to update this statement in here. So insert into appointments, we'll go statement and then equals connection, prepare method, insert into appointments, we can keep that the same, course underscore name, comma instructor name, comma start date, comma end date, the same, but now we have to add after end date, we have to add start underscore time, comma end underscore time, because now we are dealing with times. And then we have to increase the number of question marks by 2. When we bind parameters, we have to increase the number of S letters by 2 S's. So now we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. We have 6 S letters, and then we have to bind the course, instructor, start, and then end. After end, we have to add start time variable, and then comma end time variable. Then also we need to go down a little bit. Right below the end variable here, end date, we have to add a new variable which is start equals post. We will use the post variable and then select the attribute start underscore time. Start underscore time. Otherwise it will be an empty string. The name of the variable is start time. Then end time equals post, and then select the attribute end underscore time, otherwise it will be an empty string. So now we have created 2 new variables, start time equals post, and then choose start underscore time attribute, otherwise it will be empty string. The same goes for the end time. We have selected from the post end underscore time, and then otherwise it will be empty string. We have to update or edit the update statement by going update FID. Now we have to go and start and date, and then update the statement equals connection prepare. We have to prepare a new statement, a new SQL statement by update appointments, set course name equals a question mark, instructor name equals question mark, start date equals question mark, end date equals question mark. Then after end date we have to add comma start underscore time equals question mark, comma end underscore time equals question mark, as you see, where ID equals question mark. Then when we bind the parameters, we have to pass 2 more S's. So now we have SS, SS, SSI. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. We have 6 S's and 1 I. And then we have to pass in here course, comma instructor, comma start, comma end, comma ID. Now we want to remove ID and add, rather than ID, start time, comma end time, comma ID. So the last one must be ID. Okay, then we can execute and close that statement safely. In the handle delete, we don't need to change anything, but the last block of code here that we have to change is this while loop. So now we have to add comma, after end we have to add comma, then add string start underscore time equals row. We have to access the row and then access the column start underscore time, comma. Also we have to add end underscore time and then add and then add this value. Row, choose the end underscore time value. Like that, we have finished editing all of our file. Just one little small adjustment in the SQL. When you go to the calendar, when we go to the appointments inside our database calendar that we have created in the last section, we have a calendar database and then we have appointments. We need to go to this table. As you can see, we have ID, course name, instructor name, start date, end date, and then created at. We have to add two new columns, which is start time and end time. So add two columns after end date, which is start underscore time of type time. So by going time, choose time, and then end underscore time, choose the type time, and then we can save it like that. So now we have alter table appointments, add start time of type time, not null. Also after end date, add also end time of type time, not null, alter start time. Now we have these two new columns in the table. As you can see, start time, end time of type time. In the next section, we will make sure that our app works successfully, and we will preview it together. So thanks for watching. See you in the next section. In this section, we will do the final touches of this app. As you notice, we don't have the calendar showed, and we cannot choose the days, and the days are not appeared in the calendar app. So to show the days, to display the days, we have to go to the index.php file, and the first thing, we have to include the calendar.php file by going PHP and then close the PHP tag. Then we have to include the file calendar.php and then put a semicolon. So we have to include the file calendar.php. The next update or edit, right before the script tag, we have to open another script tag or script command by going script and then /script. Inside this script, we have to initialize a constant and call it events equals. We have to open a PHP tag and close it. Then inside these, between the opening and closing tags, we have to call the function JSON underscore encode. We have to encode JSON to the and then pass to this function the value events from DB. So this variable is coming from this file. We have this variable events from DB. This is a variable called events from DB that contains all of this information. So we have to encode it in a JSON format by passing it to the function JSON underscore encode. And then we have to pass this option JSON underscore unescaped underscore Unicode. Okay, now we will close this by adding semicolon. Let's go to our app and then reload the page. 3, 2, 1, reload. Hooray! Now we have our calendar app ready to go, and it's now ready to book some days and do all of that stuff. First of all, you will notice that we have a nice and amazing header which contains the string course calendar, my calendar project, and also we have this clock counting up every second. Okay, and then we have this box which contains the name of the current month and the number of the current year. And also we can navigate back and forth. You can go back April, March, and we can go forth by going June, July, and August, September, November, December, and then to the next year. You can notice it will shift to the next year. Okay, now if you reload the page, you will be redirected to the current month, to the current year, and also to the current day. You will notice that the current day is highlighted with the background blue. So the current day is highlighted as a background of blue, and you can add a new event. You'll notice we have course title as an input. You can type in the course title for example, HTML course, and then the instructor name, for example, me, Mohammed, and then it will start from this date, okay, from today till the end. It will be, for example, 9, okay. Then we will save that, okay. So you'll notice that we have this event starting from the 6th of June till the 9th of June. Also, you can edit its name. Now notice we have its name as HTML course, okay. We can edit it by going edit and then change its name, for example, to CSS course. Now you will, if you save that, it will become CSS course. And also the nice thing in here, you can edit the instructor name. So for example, instructor name as, for example, John, and now save that, it will become John. So the instructor of the course is John. If we zoom in to see, we have now the instructor name as John and the course name as CSS course. Also, we can edit the hours. So we can go start time, edit it. Now it's starting from the 9 o'clock till 10 o'clock. We can edit it to, for example, start from 1 o'clock a.m. to 5 o'clock a.m. And now we can save that. It starts from 1 o'clock till 5 o'clock, and that shows us the time for every single day. Okay, so now we have 1 o'clock till 5 o'clock. Also, we can add multiple events in the same day by going add and then add another event. For example, the course title as data science course, and the instructor is, for example, called Smith. And now we can update the start date, or we can keep it the same. End date, it can span till the 19th of this month. Then we can update the start time. For example, starts from 10 p.m. For example, you can also alter it or modify it to p.m. and then the end time will be to 12 p.m. 12 p.m. or a.m. Okay, and then save. Yes, now we have data science course that the teacher is Smith. It overlaps with the CS course till the 9th of this month, and then it grows, or it spans lonely till the 19th of this month. So we have built a robust and scalable app. I am proud of you. Okay, now we will also try to delete this event, which is, you can choose from here. If we try to edit this, when we have overlapping events and click on edit, we have a input here. What this input does, when we click over it, you will notice that we have CSS course and data science course. So it's telling you which course you want to edit, which course you want to update. In this case, for example, I want to update the CSS course and change its name from being CSS to be a JavaScript course by going JavaScript, or for example, for short, let's keep it JS, and then we can save that. It's now JS course. As you can see, we have JS course, JS course, JS course, and JS course, and then it stops in the 9th at the 9th of this month, and the data science will span alone. We can edit for example, JS course and then delete it. If you want to delete it, you can delete it, and it will show a pop-up to confirm that procedure. Are you sure you want to delete this appointment? Yes, I am sure. Okay, now you will notice that we don't have that event anymore, and that is our app. As you can see, we can add, we can edit, we can delete, and also you can go into here and add another appointment. For example, we can name it as data analysis or AI course, or AI bootcamp in this case, and then an instructor name, for example, as John, and then the start date from 22 of this month, June, and the end date, I want it to end on the last day of this month. The o'clock, you can adjust it, you can keep it the same, and then save. You'll notice that we have here, so 20 and 21 we don't have anything, but from 22 till the 30th of this month we have these AI bootcamp, and the instructor is John. Also, you can edit the end date alone. Not just you can edit the course title or instructor name, but also we can adjust the end date to end, for example, on the 27th of this month. Save. It will end on the 27th of this month, and we don't have on 28 or 29 anything, as you can see. Then we can also when we have over these days, we have just add. But when we have on a day that has existing events, it shows add and edit. Okay, it shows add and edit, and then we can edit the starting of this event to start from the 20th of this month, because right now we don't have this anything on 20. Now it will start from 20 till 27. So that's it. That's the end of the calendar project app. We have built a Google Calendar clone project. We have replicated the dates, the times, features in the app, and we have created successfully databases. And if you notice, when we browse the database now in the course calendar, and then go to appointments, it's now storing in this database. As you can see, yes, now we have these HTML course. The instructor is Muhammad. Data science course instructor is Smith, and start date, end date, created date, also when it was created, start time and end time. So we have built this robust and scalable project using HTML, CSS, JavaScript, PHP, and SQL. It's a full stack project, and I hope you liked it. See you in the next tutorials and lectures. So thanks for watching, and goodbye.